This is More Than Before with Nathan Cook.
Hey everyone, I am super excited for our guest today. He is a competitive body flyer, skydiver, and he's also the general manager at iFly in New Jersey right now. And he is absolutely an awesome guy. Super excited to have him on the show today. Get to know a little bit more about his story, but also kind of get to know the man behind the success. I mean, you've had quite a bit of success. So welcome Spencer Lebinski to the program. Spencer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Nathan?
I'm doing awesome. Hey, brother, it is so good to have you on. You know, it's funny. We worked together for a short stint a number of years ago when I was going through a searching moment of my life, and I thought, man, I should go get a part-time job while I'm doing my own coaching thing. And I thought, man, you know what I should do? I should get a job working at something that would be fun. And what did I do? I applied for a job at iFly, which is an indoor skydiving place. Spencer, I'm curious for you. You've had a long laundry list of kind of extreme things that you've done. And I want to know, kind of growing up, what kind of got you into that? Because I don't think you wake up one morning, I mean, maybe as a boy, maybe you woke up and you're like, you know what? I want to jump off of really tall things as high as I can and see if I survive. Like, where did this come from?
My childhood, we always spent time out in the woods and exploring the nature. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Illinois, basically surrounded by cornfields, and we had five acres. So I got pretty much free reign, and I was able to go and experience just outdoors and just messing around as a kid. Through that, I pushed some limits, and my father will definitely attest to that. But I've always been kind of drawn to doing things that not everybody does. And when I got into the world of skydiving, when I turned 18, I jumped out of an airplane just like anybody can when they turn 18. Had a lot of fun, and went off to college, and I didn't have money to continue that. And then about halfway through college, I got actually laid off from one of my summer job at a wastewater plant. And, I was just looking around for a new job. And the company that I did my jump with, they were relocating, massively expanding. So I said, they probably need some help. So I shot them an email, cold email. And 48 hours later, I was hired, saw everybody coming down on the first day, big smiles, some of the coolest things ever. And I said, I got to do that. Gave them all my money, all my time, and pretty much worked for free that entire summer. That's how I got into the skydiving world. And through the skydiving world, I have met so many incredible people that has opened doors for opportunities, whether within skydiving or different adrenaline sports.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned adrenaline sports because the types of people that attract adrenaline sports are really fascinating to me. I surround myself a lot with freedivers right now. Freediving is one of the most dangerous sports from what I've heard from people. Hopefully my wife is listening to this episode. Yeah, there's a lot more air when you're coming down from the sky than there is underneath the water, right? But
the ocean's scary, man.
I will say that the transparency, the realness of people that you get to spend time with in these environments, adrenaline-rich environments, is really quite fascinating. Over the years, you've gotten to meet some pretty cool people. What has been kind of your experience with people in the extreme industry? Do they seem more chill? Are they more like that? I think typically when someone thinks of an extreme sport, they think of someone that's like so high on octane and they're jumping like, and they're ready to go. Right. And not to say that they aren't, but I don't think that categorizes the majority of people that are out there.
No, that's a great bring up. And so, going back to like skydiving and even just like I've done kiteboarding and a few other paragliding, parasailing, all that good stuff. It's a crazy mix of people. On a single skydive, I have somebody who's a lawyer, a prominent lawyer making well over 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures a year. And, we're jumping with somebody who just scraped up enough money to get that one jump today. It's a very interesting thing that, these sports really bring different people together for the love of that sport. Just like with free diving, I'm sure there's plenty of different personalities and whatnot and backgrounds that come to do that. But what really brings everybody together is that sport in of itself. When we're skydiving, there's no judgments about your life story, about your whatever's happening in your life. It doesn't really matter, because when we're falling out of the sky for 45 seconds, we're focusing on each other and the goals and the plans that we want to accomplish.
I think it's fascinating you bring up the 45-second drop, because isn't it true that when you're in a situation like you have that high adrenaline, you're not thinking about your mortgage payments. You're not thinking about the fight that you had with your spouse the other day.
Yep.
You're not thinking about the day-to-day things that we're going through. Everything checks out. I'd be curious, and you can speak to this here in a second, but I'd be curious of when that moment takes place. Like, is it when you're getting in the plane and all of a sudden you realize that it's real, that you're taking off the runway? Obviously, you're more seasoned than most people, but when is it that you're no longer thinking about the general aspects of life and you actually just start being in the moment? But then also, I'm curious, what kind of takeaways from your jumps have you gained over the years? Because it truly is a moment where you are just there. And maybe the first time someone gets down, they're just like, oh my gosh, I made it. I'm not dead. I love life. And they're kissing the ground, right? There's that extreme to the extreme of someone that goes, man, I just realized, and maybe I had a problem that I just solved because of this last jump, because it just cleared my mind. So I wonder if you speak into a little bit about that. At what point does that happen for you? And what are some of those takeaways that you've gained over the years by going through the process of a jump?
The moment that freedom and that clarity happens, I would say is like as soon as your foot leaves the airplane. On the ride up and everything. Yeah. But on the ride up, it's roughly about 20 minutes to get to the altitude that we jump from. Usually it does give you a little bit of time to think. And that's actually when I really do reflect on, why am I doing this? What the heck am I doing? I'm about to chuck myself out of a perfectly good airplane. And then as soon as I leave that airplane, it's like, oh, duh, this is why, So, so I would say as soon as I jump out, that is my pure focus, to have fun in free fall and then get safely back on the ground. Nothing else matters. All the work problems, they all fade away. And that's one of the things that really drew me to skydiving as well, is just that, you can take that break from life and just really enjoy nature, really enjoy the people that you're around, and, potentially accomplish a goal. And then to your second question, some of the things I've learned, first and foremost, it's a team sport. This is, your success is reliant on other people. Your safety is reliant on other people, and we all have to have trust within each other, that we all know what we're doing and what we're capable of doing, and getting that trust together, and just realizing that it is 100% a team sport. Whether you're jumping with one person or, on my world record, we had up to 95 people in the air at the same time. That's been one of my biggest takeaways. And honestly, everything in life is a team sport. You need some sort of support system to help you, guide you, and move forwards.
I think a lot of people don't see life as a team sport, right? We live in a culture nowadays that tells us, well, it's all about you. You got to pull up your boots from your own bootstraps. You make it happen yourself. You don't rely on anyone. You can't trust anyone. And the reality is, the older we get, the more we realize how untrue that is. The need that we not only have for other people, but we truly desire it in our lives. And in a world where we feel so disconnected from other people, it's so important to feel and be a part of something, to be a part of a team. And I love how you say that this whenever you go out on a jump, whether you're the person that's taking someone or whether you're the pilot or whether you're the chute packer, because if I remember correctly, you started your job as the chute packer, right?
Yeah, that was my primary job for about 2 years. Yep.
You're a member of the team. And, I'm curious, when you started doing that, I love that you got into this as the chute packer, which I think I'm not so keen on all the aspects of skydiving, but I'm guessing the chute packer is exactly what it sounds like. You're packing the chutes, right?
Yep.
And everyone relies on you. Really, their life depends on you packing the chute. Like that is the most important aspect. Like, yeah, the plane will get you up there. Yeah, the other person that's attached to you. But you want to make sure that your chute's actually going to open to its fullest capabilities, right? What were some of the lessons you learned starting from such a humble position, even though it's an integral part of the process, but moving from that, which we would maybe think that that's like the lowest on the totem pole, all the way up to being an instructor where you're taking people's out of the plane? What were some of the lessons along the way of gradually getting to that point? Because I think a lot of people today think overnight success, right? What can I do today? Like, I want to get my certification and I want to be able to go take my friends out skydiving tomorrow. Like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but in reality, probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you as you were starting from the beginning and building yourself up to that point of being an instructor?
A lot of it is money and time, right? So, to become a skydiving tandem instructor, you have to have a minimum of 500 jumps, and then you can go into your course and start going through the course. But one of the lessons I definitely learned along the way was to use your resources. Every single person that worked at the drop zone had something valuable to give me. They probably didn't know what it was. Some of them did, the seasoned vets and whatnot. But somewhere along the line, through our interactions and everything, almost every single person that worked in the industry gave me some little nugget of information that eventually pushed me forward. And then beyond that, it was just setting goals and making sure I hit those and follow through on them. I know I have to get 500 jumps. Okay. Well, let's start there. Let's get all the way up to 500 and get through all my licenses and everything. So I am the best prepared for this course to become an instructor. Then you got to get the course going and then read all your papers and all that kind of stuff. So, and you could do half of that before you even get to the course. So, just setting those milestone goals along the way to hit the bigger goal at the end really helped. And then, use your resources, talk to people. What did you struggle with? How can I not struggle with that? So that has been one of my biggest takeaways with my teachings over the years.
It's kind of coming back to this idea of teamwork. I love what you said about resources, that most people don't even understand their resources. Like, you go to someone and you have to know the resources that you're asking for, because sometimes the person may have them, but they don't actually view them as a resource. Like, most people who come to me, I wouldn't say that my ability to communicate and connect is a resource to me, because it comes naturally. But to be able to communicate that and help other people out with their communication is something that I do very often. Now I see that it's a resource because I've had enough people come to me and say, hey, you're really good at this. This is a resource. Same thing for you, your ability to understand teams and bring teams together. You mentioned earlier about a world record that you were a part of. I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I don't think we meet a lot of people that set world records. Tell us a little bit about what that world record was. But I think what's really interesting about this world record is that it requires a lot of planning, a lot of teamwork, and a lot of trust, because you have to trust every single person that's a part of this particular process. So tell us a little bit about what the world record was, how important teamwork was in terms of getting to that point of breaking that record.
The world record is the world head up vertical formation. is how it's titled. So we were in an orientation as if you were sitting in a chair. We call it sit flying or head up flying. There was ultimately 72 of us that were able to complete the formation and set the new world record. Previously, it was 55 people. Leading up to that jump, man, yeah, like you said, there was a lot that went into it. On my personal side, I had to go to a training camp. So I had to fly from San Antonio to Phoenix over Thanksgiving weekend, spend about $2,000 to be a part of these jumps and really start to get into these bigger formations. Luckily, I got what we kind of consider a golden ticket. I was already approved to be on the world record team after that training camp. So I was able to come back in April, and we were attempting to go for 100, but we had to slim it down just because we were running out of time. And then what actually went into it, man, so much. But before every single jump, we would what we call dirt dive. So we are setting up in the landing area. We had 5 different airplanes. Everybody's in their own little airplane. And then we would all walk out as if we were flying and come together and see that sight picture, see what the end goal actually is. Shout out any reminders and whatnot. And then practice when it was time to get away from each other so we could safely open our parachutes as well. So we did that every single time we jumped, and we spent about 30 minutes every single time.
How many times did you actually go through that process of the practice for that?
I want to, I believe we got it on jump number 12.
So it wasn't like 2 jumps and you got it, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. And so the week that we were attempting this world record, it was like the 1 week in Arizona that it was cloudy. And we do have to follow visual flight rules. So if it's cloudy, we're not allowed to jump through clouds. So we had some weather challenges and whatnot, but ultimately we had about 2 days total to get all these jumps in. So we started at about 6 a.m., went all the way till sundown. And we started, I believe, with 92 people on the jump. And we noticed that, a few people weren't making the cut. So we asked them to sit down. And one of the unique things with these world records is you have to plan everything, and everything has to come together exactly like what you put it on paper. Where I had to be there. I couldn't just trade places with somebody else if they were closer or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So
there's quite a bit of
one
precision to it then.
Very much so. And it's very confusing because, especially the head up record, you actually upside down till you get to the formation, then you have to flip over. And so your sight picture completely changes as you flip to the head up orientation. But so then we whittled it down, and then we noticed that today's the last day. Tomorrow's going to be a weather day. And we got pretty much 2 more shots at this. We were very, very close on the second to final shot, and we were landing. I was typically the last person to land. I was actually the lowest jump experience on that record. I only had like 470 jumps, and I'm holding out to people that have like 20,000. It's awesome.
When they say riding on the coattails of giants, like you,
I remember. I wasn't even on the ground yet, and I could hear over the loudspeaker, "You guys, we have 20 minutes until we have to be in the airplanes. We get 1 more shot at this." And then we actually finally did it on that final shot. And then it was a big party at the end of the night.
This is that formation right here, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that is our 72-way head-up formation over Eloy, Arizona, at Skydive, Arizona.
You being able to do something like this is pretty spectacular, because I think most people getting out of the plane, the first time you're kind of freaked out, but to have the precision to be able to do something like this, to have so many people coming together and to have a common goal and to reach that common goal is pretty spectacular. I think you mentioned some really cool things. The amount of labor and work that went into it, the amount of time it took to go into it, but then also the fact that things didn't go according to plan, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have clouds and you can't actually jump. because, it's literally restricted to be able to do that. And there's good reasons for that, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to come through the cloud and then have an airplane right there. Yeah.
And just my luck, that's probably what happened. So I find it really fascinating, though, because your life really has been a huge teamwork piece. And I want to talk a little bit more about teamwork, where you currently are right now here in a second. But I'm curious, has teamwork always kind of been one of those things for you in your life that you've always naturally brought people together around you? Like when you were back home and you guys were, going out in the woods and doing things that maybe got you in trouble, and you said, I love how you said, I pushed my limits. I wanted to ask, did you actually find those limits and maybe a couple things, maybe a couple trees?
Definitely a few times.
But were you a lone wolf growing up, or did you always have this sense of like community of bringing people around you?
A little bit of both. Like I said, I grew up out in the country, so I didn't have a lot of friends that actually lived anywhere near me, a few miles down the road at best. And so, I was a little bit of a loner, but I was in Boy Scouts throughout my entire childhood, and I did reach the rank of Eagle Scout. And I definitely realized I was more of a leader and somebody that if nobody's taking charge, I'm going to be the guy that does it, and let's get this, whatever it is, done, or let's make a decision and move forwards together. And I'll support you and back you, and I'm going to help you too. So it's a little bit of both, but I would definitely say, I've always been drawn a little bit more to leadership. I like to think of myself as an introvert until I clock in at work. And then for some reason that just comes out of me, and I love it.
What's really interesting is skydiving is a thing, indoor skydiving kind of a thing, but body flying, man, that is something absolutely spectacular and really cool to watch. How did you not necessarily make the transition, but how did you get into the body flying world? Like what was the draw for you going from high jumping out of a plane to going into a wind tunnel and being blown at, hundreds of miles an hour so you can learn how to actually use your body in a way to fly?
I got into iFly through one of my resources, talking to people around the drop zone. Somebody that went and worked, actually, I believe you know him, Timmy Hunkler. We were skydiving together, and then he started working for iFly, and he brought me in. But what really drew me to the job itself is giving that experience of flight and giving that freedom of flight and delivering the dream of flight. Everybody has had a dream where they've woken up and they've been able to fly in their dreams. We can make that a reality. And that really drew me in. And then once I started actually taking people and teaching people, seeing those light bulb moments when everything just kind of falls into place, they finally understand the skill, whatever we've been working on, and they can do it repetitively, fast, no problem, and we can move on to the next thing. So, just seeing those light bulb moments really kind of kept me around, I would say.
You went from instructor and then you slowly moved your way up into general manager where you are right now.
Mm-hmm. My journey started in 2014 in Chicago. I started out as an instructor, pretty quickly rose through the instructor ranks, and then started becoming a instructor trainer. So I'm teaching the other instructors. Moved over to San Antonio, kept going up the instructor side, moved to Phoenix, kept going up the instructor side. And then I actually had a back injury that, it was very, very, very slow to recover. That was the time that I had to kind of look myself in the mirror and figure out what was next for me. I still enjoyed the company. I still enjoyed everything that we did. Fully stand behind the product. So I went to my boss and, kind of laid it out to them and said, I can't physically do this, but I want to be a part of the team. So they found some room for me in a more management role. And then the rest is kind of history. I started working my way up, moved up to Portland, worked with you, made it to GM before 2020 hit, and then went back to Phoenix. Then I'm over here in Jersey as the GM.
Yeah. You've had quite a few setbacks throughout your career, throughout different aspects of life, right? You talk about setbacks in the air. You talk about setbacks of your back injury. I'm sure there were
Mhm.
probably setbacks when you were growing up. What's a challenge that you've had in your life? What was your response to it? And how did you grow through that challenge in your life?
That's a great question. I got my whole notepad over here of challenges just from today, but one of my challenges was this. Actually, last year I was the GM of iFly Phoenix. I applied for a promotion into regional director twice last year. Both times I was passed on, and I was definitely defeated. Definitely. The first round, the person that got it, 100% reasonable, respect it. That was like the only person I would have respected from the day one. But the second round, they actually decided to go a different route. But still, I was defeated. And I made that known. Uh, uh, and whether it was, I had a talk with one of my HR people, and then shortly after that talk, they presented New Jersey to me. And I said, "You're going to take me out of Scottsdale, Arizona and put me in New Jersey? I don't think so."
You've been watching too much Jersey Shores, have you? Like,
yeah,
I
Jersey
don't know
Shore,
if I want to go
House
to
of-
Jersey.
Yeah, and I grew up in Chicago, so I'm over the winters. I've done that. It's fun. It's not for me. But they really presented it as a true opportunity to continue my growth. They laid it all out. This is what we're thinking. As your next step. If you want to do that, you need to learn from this person, and they live over on the East Coast, so you need to go work with them. And obviously the money, there was a money factor to it too. They were able to get to the magic number that was in my head and make it happen. So that was one of the challenges. And then here we go again. We're uprooting our life for iFly again and moving across the country. Luckily, I've had my wife has been very, very, very supportive throughout my entire career. And we were able to make the move, and everything's pretty much on track for that development piece that was promised to me.
Teamwork thing really keeps coming up into my head as we're talking, but there's this team aspect that you have in your life, and I would imagine that probably one of your most relied upon team members is your wife, right? Because you guys have been together coming up here on 7 years, right? You said.
Mm-hmm.
Work and the transitioning from one place to the next, the constant, oh my gosh, are we doing this again? Like, and there's always this feeling of like there's a sacrifice to get to the next thing, right? In order to get to that next thing in your life, you always have to sacrifice something, whether that's comforts of where you are, whether that's a paycheck, or fill in the blank. There's always some kind of sacrifice in order to get to that next echelon. How have you and your wife navigated these waters for so long? Because it's very rare that you find someone who's been married for almost 7 years and they've worked their problems out. They've decided to continue moving in the same direction, especially when I would imagine that maybe your wife isn't like the huge skydiver that you are. Maybe she is, but you probably have differences of hobbies and things that you guys like. And so how has that played a huge role in your development over the years of kind of understanding who you are, but then also this role that you have that you play as her husband?
I mean, there's been a lot that not only both of us have sacrificed, but definitely her. She's uprooted her life and new friends, new jobs, new everything for me, and to follow my career and keep pushing forwards with mine. And now we're getting to the point that in her career, we have to make these decisions a little bit more carefully. She's been able to work her way up a bit. She works for Whole Foods now, and she has opportunities in front of her. So now we got to sit down and weigh them out. Which one is going to be better for us as a family to be able to move forwards in the best light. So yeah, there's been plenty of challenges and sacrifices that have had to be made. But I would say one of the biggest things that that my wife and I have been very successful about is just talking. We check in almost every single day. As soon as we get paid, we look at each other. What bills you got to pay? I got to pay this, this, and this. Okay, well, hey, one of the things that we did when we first got married, we dumped all of our money into one account. We only have one account for both of us. That's it. So that forced us to communicate about money, which is, I'd probably say 50% of relationship issues for married people.
Huge.
And whatnot. So we have to talk. That forces us to talk 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week about that one thing. And that translates into pretty much everything else that we do, because you need money, time and money to do everything, right? So through that, we find our common goals and our common desires. And if you want to go take a class to better yourself, I'm fully supportive. I'm going to take that $400 for my class, and I'm going to go skydive or whatever it might be, So yeah, it's just, communication has been hands down the biggest thing that we've been successful at over the last 7-9 years, if you count us dating.
My wife and I were marriage coaches, and it's funny because one of the most difficult topics for any relationship is money. And the staggering statistic of how many people go into marriage and they never combine their funds. They always keep their funds in separate accounts. Yeah. That maybe that's just me being, archaic and like, oh, we're just going to throw all our money up in one place. And I want to know how much we have so that I know that we're not going to be drowning at the end of the month. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is something about this that it is a huge conflict when we start talking about money. But for you guys to start right off the bat with the money conversation is huge. And I think a lot of couples don't actually do that. They don't, they put the topics that they don't really want to talk about, that they know it might cause an argument or maybe, some abrasion in the relationship. They want to put it off to the side, when in actuality, and correct me if I'm wrong, would you say that those talks that you've had, maybe some of the more abrasive ones, some of the ones that get a little bit more heated, would you say that after those talks, after you've mended things and worked through things, you guys are stronger than when you were than if you hadn't have communicated?
100%, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, if you choose to not to talk about it, like, it's not going to go away. It's going to continue to fester and become even more of a problem. My wife had a student loan that never really found her until like 5 years later.
I hate those heat-seeking student loans.
Yeah. She didn't really know about it, and there was all the addresses and phone numbers were all wrong and all that kind of stuff. So there was some serious financial issues that we had to take care of surrounding that. It put us in a not so great financial place, but we had to do it. And if we would have just continued to ignore it and forget about it, or just have those small little conversations but never actually solve the problem, I mean, we'd probably still be dealing with it today. You have to hit those problems head on, and definitely became stronger as a couple.
Where do you think that communication piece came from? Because you both obviously had the desire to work and to communicate together. But I'm curious, from your side of things, where did you learn that ability to have those tough conversations, to actually have the conversations that need to be had? Because what I find really interesting, I'm lucky that I've had the opportunity to know you and see you in difficult situations where you do cut out the BS. You go straight and you say, hey, look, here's what's happening. I'm not going to hide things from you, but here's what's going on. And we got to come to a solution. So let's work together to make this work out for everyone here. And that's always kind of been your heart whenever I've seen you, for as long as I've known you. And that's not a common thing for people to do. Most people today, they run in the opposite direction of anything that is conflict. So I'm curious, where do you feel like that came from in terms of this idea to be able to be open to communicating about conflict in your life?
No, I would definitely say that, a lot of it, and even with combining all of our money and everything, came out of my parents' divorce. They got divorced when I was about 10 years old. So I was just young enough to not really understand what was going on. But over the years, with going to my father and my mother for advice about life or marriage or whatever it might be, I kind of learned the reasons that led up to the divorce. That was something that I 100% wanted to avoid, and communication was like one of the easiest ways to avoid 90% of those issues. So, so that was probably where I got most of it, truthfully.
How old would you say you were when you started having those conversations with your folks?
Some of the lesser ones of just like, why did you guys get divorced? And was there any other reason kind of thing? Those were probably like later in my teens. But nowadays, my father and my mother speak completely open about it. So I would probably say about 5, maybe 10 years ago is when I got like the full story. And I still see, the issues that they had. I could still see those in each individual. But now I can actually spot them and like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Okay.
So, I mean, you've grown a lot even since the time that I've known you. We always talk about doing things. We always talk about achievement. We always we talk about success in life and money. And those are all really good things, right? We need money in order to make the world turn, to solve problems. Success helps us to open doors. But I think at the end of the day, one of the most important things that we can do is to define who it is that we want to be. Who do we want to be in our life? And I find that most people don't actually spend a lot of time asking themselves this question of, well, who do I want to be in this situation? In the difficult times where you're having an argument with your spouse and you say, well, you know what? I chose a long time ago that I'm going to talk with my wife and we're going to work through these things. Even if we talk each other to death, then we'll be free, right? Till death do we talk. And for you, I'm curious, what have been some of those decisions that you've made in your life that you say, you know what, this is who I want to be? What are some of those non-negotiable things if you say, this is my identity, this is who I am?
I would definitely say one of them would be somebody that is always, I'm not quick to say no. Somebody that, like, if there's a problem, there's always a solution to that problem, whatever it might be. And then I want to be the person that wants to say yes, right? Sometimes, policies, procedures, you name it, laws stop me from doing that. But if somebody comes to me with a problem, I want to be the one that helps them to solve it and do it in the best way possible too. Where, sure, the walls are crumbling down around us, but hey, man, it's okay. We're going to be all right. We're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out. Whatever the problem is, we're going to make it right. That's been one of my biggest things, especially when I'm customer facing, but even with my employees and my wife and my friends and everything, I want to be the one that helps you get to whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's coming in a fly, get to, the train on time, whatever it is, let me be the one that helps you.
What has been the hardest thing for you to say no to, right? Because I love that you say the yes. And in order to say yes as many times as you're able to, there always has to be a no somewhere along the way, right? And so I'm curious, what for you has been maybe one of the harder things that you've had to say, in order for me to continue to be in alignment with who I am, in order to continue to be that person that says there's going to be a solution, I'm going to walk with you in the solution. You've had to say no to some things along the way. What are some of the harder things that you've had to say no to, but you're glad that you did?
Most people would say management. But no, that's a great question. I mean, man. So I did have an opportunity to potentially go into more the sales side of our business, where they're doing direct sales and B2B sales and hunting down leads and all that kind of stuff. And that's definitely something I'm glad I said no to. That sales and pure sales takes a certain kind of person. And, I'll sell things until I'm blue in the face, but that level of sales and where 95% of your paycheck is tied to it, I'm glad I didn't do that. And yeah, I saw myself more as a leader of a team, and I'm very glad I pursued that route rather than going into the sales route.
Would you say then, because you said no to that, you were able to say yes to leadership then?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If I would have committed to sales, like it would have been a completely different growth and training and all that kind of stuff. And actually during when COVID hit, our company got rid of 90-ish% of our sales force. I was one of the lucky ones that was a general manager and was able to stay with the company and continue to move forwards with them and get them out of COVID and reopened.
One of the things that I think is interesting about your story is always this ability to step out into kind of the unknown, whether you're ready to do it or not. I love that, on your jump, multiple jumps, but specifically the world record. I recall you saying, well, I wasn't the most experienced. In fact, I was the least experienced person there, with 400 jumps under my belt versus the next person with 20,000, right?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about being willing to jump when you're not ready, because a lot of people are waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting. Getting into an industry that maybe they're not 100% certain about. That's not to say that you jump blindly into things, right? There's a reason why you don't jump into clouds. You got to be able to see what's below. But there is something to be said about taking chances, jumping in, and making the most of every single experience. Spencer, what would you say to the person who is currently in a stagnant place where they just don't feel like they're happy and they feel like they should make a jump and they're just not jumping because of fear? You deal with fear day in, day out, probably more than any other person I know. You deal with fearful people all the time. How do you help people overcome that fear and to make that first step to jump?
First, for the people that are kind of on the edge, thinking about jumping, do it. Just do it. It's awesome. I've always been somebody that chases opportunities, right? I want to try. I'm always been inclined to try new things, whether it be food or an experience or an activity, whatever it might be. I'm down to do it. Let's go. And then only once I tried, then I can tell you if I actually liked it or not, and if I want to continue to do it. There's been plenty of things I've tried in my life that I'm good. I'm not going to do it again. But then, I've really seen that it opens up your horizons. And, just moving around the country with iFly, that's always been a jump, I'm really comfortable back home in Chicago, but San Antonio, I guess let's try it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I've always been somebody that's just like, let's see what happens. And then I love faking it until I make it. If you can put on the suit and put a smile on your face, you're halfway home. It's the attitude that you go into these experiences or these jobs or whatever it might be in your life that really, really, really drives it all together. It drives it home. So you have to have the right attitude when you go into these things, but try not to let anything stop you from trying those things. If it's time or money, if you are serious about this opportunity, you're going to find a way to do it. Just like the world record. I mean, I probably put about $7,000 into it. When it was all said and done between travel and jumps and all that kind of stuff, I didn't have that money, but I found it because I had an idea in my head that I wanted to accomplish, and I figured out a way to make it work.
It's such a great lesson because a lot of people don't understand it, that the resources don't come until you take the step towards what it is that you want. 9 times out of 10 in my life, I don't have the resources to always take that next step. But when I do, the resources start falling into place. That doesn't mean go take a, like a $30,000 loan to go crazy with something. You have to have some prudence within this, but there is something to be said about taking that step out. And I love that you talk about that because it's true. So many people don't step out and they lack experience. They lack experience in life because they're not willing to try new things. Something as simple as going and trying a new food. Like it's surprising to me how many people aren't willing to try something new. And what it does, whether you like it or not, it opens up your mind to newer experiences. It's the yes and. Here is one more thing that I've tried. Here's something I may not like it, but I now know that I've done it and I've tried it. And you'll find a lot of things that you actually do love and like in your life. Before we wrap up here, Spencer, there's one thing I do want to ask you, because I love that you talk about attitude and how important attitude is as you show up through different experiences. Most people, I would say all people, because they're human, we have experiences in life that are challenging, that are frustrating, that are hard. But you have this demeanor about you where you're always lighthearted, you're laughing, you're happy. Maybe there's some times where someone might catch you off every now and then, because we know we're human, we're not perfect. But happiness being a choice is a huge philosophy in your life. Tell everyone here a little bit about how do you make happiness a choice when the world seems to be falling down around you? And I think that's happening a lot around us right now. People are having a hard time paying rent or finding a job or, fill in the blank. People around us are just really struggling in areas of their life, and they're having a hard time with the situation, dealing with it, and being positive, being happy. How do you choose? How do you make that choice to be happy in every circumstance?
Definitely. So first, I'm glad that you've brought up that happiness is a choice. That is something that I probably say once a month in my team meeting, in our monthly team meeting, and then probably several times a week with my employees when they're coming up to me upset about whatever it might be. And I just remind them that happiness is a choice. You have to choose to be happy. If you focus on the negatives, like that's all it's ever going to be. That's going to be your life. It's going to be negative. It's going to be not fun. It's not going to be something that you want to wake up and go to work. And no, don't do that. You gotta find those silver linings within the problem, the issue, whatever it might be in your life, and hone in on those, celebrate them, maybe write down a list of all the negatives and figure out how to turn those into positives. So there's been a lot of things that happened in my life that has, in the moment, it has sucked and it was horrible. It really, really was bad. But then, 2-3 years later, I remember about that and I reflect on it and wait, that was actually a really good experience. So there's a lot of bittersweet within life, and half the time you're not going to find that sweet part until way further down the road. Don't wallow in the negativity. If you need a day to just take a break, let that happen, but start tomorrow with positivity, happiness, and a plan.
Happiness, positivity, and a plan. And I love what you were saying. I've heard it said a lot. You find what you're looking for. If you're looking for the negative stuff, you're going to find the negative stuff. If you're looking for the happiness in life, if you're looking for the positive stuff, you are 100% going to find it. So Spencer, I really appreciate you jumping on today, being able to share experiences from your life, who you are, and really who you show up as. If someone wanted to follow you, Spencer, where should they go to follow you? Is that Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. My handle is FlySpencerFly.
I love that. And for all of you listening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend, because I think it will be inspiring and truly make someone's day and remind them to be happy, because happiness is a choice.